What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Awards Buzz podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valera. We are back. It is Oscar season, and it's very, very exciting. I am joined by a very good friend of mine, and I will say a pretty solid awards predictor, Mr. Benji. How are you, man?
I'm very good, thank you, sir. This has been a good couple of years since I last featured on Pod with you, so I'm more than excited to be back. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. We talked about it. We've been in and out. We've been having this conversation. I think we even had the conversation last year. Things just kind of fall
We
into
did.
place, and they do. And it's like, right place, right time with a lot of different things. But I'm excited to be here. On today's episode, we are going to tackle both supporting categories, actress and actor. And there's a lot of great names in the forefront of the conversation, correct, Benji?
Correct. And without delving into it too much, I've kind of seen a lot of conversation about how this year's been a poor year for film. Now, whether people are just comparing it to other years, I don't know. But compared to since I started monitoring the award season way back when, this has definitely been one of the stronger years, especially when you look back at years like the 2022 Oscar season. Already, we have a much better slate than where we were at this time of that year. So, yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the things I haven't seen yet. I'm excited to see where things fall into place. It should be a fun year, and I think the beauty of this year compared to other years is that you like for the past couple of years with everything everywhere and Oppenheimer, when it got to around about this time of those years, we were about 90% sure they were going to win Best Picture, or at least a lot of people had them at their number one. This year, we have about three movies that are all kind of dwindling in people's number ones, and there could be an outside shot. So I think for this year in particular, the thing I'm most excited about is that a lot of the categories still seem pretty unpredictable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I find interesting as well, because if you ask 10 different people right now, you might get the same answer three different times instead of 10 for 10. Like you're right. Like last year, even the years prior, it's been consistently some of the same movies just running rapid across the board. The Brutalist is in the front of the fourth ray. Honora is there's a lot of different things in the conversation, but at the end of the day, people for best actress, best supporting actor, best supporting actress. Like there's a lot of question marks of like who is really going to take things home. Obviously, nominations are around the corner for a lot of different critical things as we lead up to the Oscars, which kind of helps pivot some of the conversations. But like I do, and like I did with the first set of these conversations and predictions, what I like to do is I want to bring the names to the forefront of the conversation. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the names a little bit here and there. And within that conversation, then we're going to end it obviously with our predictions in these categories, right? So in the supporting actress category, it's quite possibly a loaded from top to bottom. It's kind of crazy how much depth we have in this category, in my opinion. There's been many years where the depth of these categories aren't as deep as they are, and I really feel confident in both the categories we're talking about today. You could see five different, three to five different people different on everybody's predictions because of how interesting and how deep these categories are. But reading off some of the list of the names that we are looking at here, we're looking at Michelle Austin for Hard Truths. We're talking about Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, Liana Benesh for September 5th, Saoirse Ronan, who is looking to potentially be double nominated this year and then this one for Blitz. Toni Collette maybe in juror number 2. Selena Gomez is in the conversation. Daniel Deadweiler for The Piano Lesson. Anjanou Ellis-Taylor, Nickel Boys, Felicity Jones, and obviously the movie we talked about, The Brutalist. And in some circles, some people consider in my opinion, too, the kind of the front runner of this conversation is always Aldana for Emilia Perez. And
Yep.
then there's a few interesting names that you could really kind of toss into the conversation is Joan Chen for Didi. You also have, there's a lot of people picking Ariana Grande right now in supporting. So Wicked is apparently a movie that people really like and think that it could be an interesting awards play. It's something that would shock the hell out of me, but hey, look, there's predictors in this space predicting it. So when you look at this conversation, Benji, what are some of your favorite performances amongst these people?
So My favorite of these performances, not that I feel like she will get nominated, but I'd love to see it, and that's Margaret Qualley in The Substance. Now, with kind of Demi Moore kind of riding the coattails of, like she's back, like this is it, this is her best performance. She's been around for ages. Let's get her that Oscar nomination. Maybe we can get her that Oscar win. This, I feel like Qualley's kind of gone overlooked for that reason when really at the end of the day they're both literally playing the same character, the same consciousness, and they both kind of had to complement one another in kind of the way that they do things, and they both kind of have an arc and a journey, but and by the end of the movie we kind of see how it all comes together. So in terms of my favorite off of like the list of like the top 20, I'd probably say that it would be Quali, but then again I had to be realistic and just think, would it probably happen? No. A kind of a second favorite that I have, and I'm kind of surprised that she is the front runner at the moment, because after coming out of it, even though I really admire the performance, I didn't actually see it being something else that other people would pick up on as much as I did, and that's Zoe Saldana in Emilia Perez. I mean, obviously, the lead in that, played by Carla, is spoiler alert right now. That's my favorite leading performance of this year so far, but kind of Saldana, the kind of emotional gain that she has to bring to that movie, the kind of the physicalness of the musical aspect of it, the raw emotion she carries with it. I'd say in terms of the ones that are in the genuine conversation, that is my favorite.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, because we talked a little bit of Substance off the air, but my thing is I didn't love Substance as much as everybody else, and there's a reason why, but that's not the why we're here today. But to me, I know a lot of the focus is on Demi Moore, but to me,
Mhm.
Margaret Qualley is the best part of that film, and her performance is, I think, fantastic. And I can't believe, and I agree with you. Like, we're in the conversation, right? It's we're in that conversation of, all right, like we're trying to push Demi, and it makes sense, right? This could be, this is like a last hurrah type of scenario, potentially. I'm not saying she's not going to be in any
Yeah,
more movies, but in this conversation that we're having at this type of year, it's crazy to me that, because of that, you know what I mean? I truly believe that Quali is deserves to be at least in the conversation. You know what I mean? I don't feel like she is enough, but I'm with you. My favorite of the ones that we're going to talk about today is Zoe Saldana. To me, in some aspects, I think she's part. She's like a co-lead, but that's neither here or there. I understand the movie's called
I
Emilia Perez, but I'm
which I
just
do
saying.
agree with, but that's another conversation for another day.
Exactly, but I'm not one of those sticky people like, oh my god, it's character fraud, or character, category fraud.
Category fraud.
But neither way, yeah, Zoe Saldana, to me, I was blown away by her, and to me, what I love about her in this film is she has been trapped, and not in a negative way. So don't come after me, everybody. But she was kind of trapped in this franchise space for so long. I'm not saying you can't give good performances in blockbuster movies. It's not true. You can. I just saying with, the Guardians of the Galaxies, the Special Ops Lioness TV show, you're stuck in this. You almost forgot. You forget until you watch this movie how talented of a depth of an actress that Zaldana truly is, right? She gives a transformative performance in Emilia Perez. I loved Emilia Perez quite a bit, honestly. But
With
that
you
being,
on that one.
yeah,
With you
it's an
on that
incredible
one.
film.
And
It's
I think like you just said, because I want to just have the opportunity to echo it now. With some, and a lot of actors like people like Daniel Craig and Zoe Saldana, they've kind of spoken about it before about feeling trapped within kind of their roles, if that makes sense. And it is just so nice to kind of see her being able to. And again, I don't want people to come after me for saying this as well, because you can give great performances in blockbusters, but for her to be given such a kind of a lot more characteristic, raw, emotional performance to work with. I think that's partially where my excitement comes with. I love it when actors who are known for one thing, like let's take Adam Sandler and Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems. It's really nice to be able to see them do the opposite of what they're known for. And it's kind of the same story with Demi Moore in The Substance. It's kind of that excitement of kind of seeing they're back, they're in something new, they're doing something great again.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Benji, I'll let you have the floor. Give me your current five that are in for best supporting actress.
This one is pretty tricky because bar the first two I'm gonna say, I think the rest are anybody's game. And it kind of got to the point where I kind of went like, and I'm gonna leave it at this, and then I'm gonna kind of see what we get in terms of the Golden Globe, Critics' Choice nominations, and I'll reassess. My top five, my top 10 at the moment are, so I've got Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez, got Felicity Jones for The Brutalist. Number three, I've got Ingenue Ellis Taylor for Nickel Boys. Number four, Daniel Deadwyler, The Piano Lesson. Then number five, I've gone a little bit risky, but I feel like if Amelia Perez does do as well with award season and the Oscars, people do I think there could be an over nomination for Selena Gomez and Amelia Perez as well. Then going into like my 6 to 10, which are kind of the outside shots. Number six, I've actually moved Michelle Austin all the way up to number six for Hard Truths. Number seven, Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. Number eight, Leonide Benesh for September 5th. Number nine is Bella Rossellini for Conclave. And number 10, Toni Collette for Juror number 2.
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. And for me, what I've got, my five that I've got in the door right now are Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. I do as well have Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. I like Ingenue Ellis. God, Ingenue Ellis just being an Oscar nominated again. I would just love it. I can't wait to see Nickel Boys. I haven't seen yet, unfortunately. I got Danielle Deadwyler for The Piano Lesson. And I think that's five, right? Yeah. The interesting thing is I see an avenue where Selena Gomez does get in, right? You know what I mean? That like the love there could be the depth of a lot of nominations. You know what I mean? Like it really could bring in quite a bit to me. I do think the one performance that I love to talk about and still in my 10, and when I break into that 6 through 10 with, Joan Chan with Dee Dee, I still think that there's the love could potentially be there. Fernanda Montenegro for I'm Still Here. Isabel Rosalind, if Conclave is as strong as people are claiming, whether how we feel about it or not, that conversation, it could be a sweeping thing, you know what I mean, across the board. I would love to see Natasha Lyonne get some love for his $3, which I absolutely adored that film. But to me, that's kind of where you have that cutoff, because to me, and correct me if you don't, I really feel Zadana is with your lock there. I really feel like that's something that really that's a nomination guarantee. To me, it should be a win so far. Obviously, then we have to have that conversation about Ariana Grande. Does that really come to fruition? Do we get the, oh my God, the people that have seen it are the only people that have seen it type of thing? And it's that weird dynamic.
It's a limited bunch of people that have seen it so far, and we haven't seen it, so we can't comment. But at the same time, it's a limited bunch of people that have seen it so far. And what I'm sensing could be happening is that, it's a movie that people didn't have high expectations for. It ended up being really good. So now everyone's getting a little bit overexcitable and they're jumping the gun a little bit. But again, I haven't seen Gladiator 2 either, but I'm kind of seeing the same thing where very first initial reactions, everyone was saying, oh my God, like just as good as first, like best picture. And now a couple of weeks in, people are kind of calming down and going like, well, maybe, it's good, but it's not as good as everyone was saying. Like, I'm not sure about this and that. So I want to wait until I've seen it and until a few weeks time when reactions have calmed down. And if people are still feeling the same, then I'll probably consider it more.
Gladiator is that girl, man. She is that bitch. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like Gladiator 2 was that thing, and you know what? That's actually the perfect transition, obviously, in talking about the best supporting actor category, because obviously at the topic of conversation is multiple time, nominee and winner, Mr. Denzel Washington is at the front of a lot of people's leaderboards to be at least nominated in the conversation. But before obviously we dive too deep into the nominations, we do, like as we do, we want to talk a little bit about some of the people in the conversation, right? We have Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist. The Brutalist, again, is a film that you guys are going to hear a lot about from us, right? When we're doing these podcasts, when we're having these conversations, there's multiple films that are going to have sprinkled in films throughout the entirety, especially at the above the line. And then, of course, that follows suit with below the line. and The Brutalist is one of those films. Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing, definitely one of the more interesting things that we continue to see in and out because of can this film really garner that steam to come back from the oddest release I've ever seen in my entire life.
Very strange indeed.
Jeremy Strong, the apprentice, is in the front, in the conversation. Does a different man really light up things with Adam Pearson? Edward Norton, a complete unknown, which really can explain the entire award circle for that film. It's completely unknown. You know what I mean? Because it's either going to be a film that's going to blow our socks off, or it's going to be a film that comes out on Christmas and we forget about by New Year's. You know what I mean? It's like there's like an in between there. And then of course you have the conversation again about a film that it's getting love. Does it get enough deep love? Conclave, John Lithgow, does that come in the conversation? John Magaro, September 5th. God, what am I missing? Did I hit everybody here? I think
I think
Jeremy
you kind of
Strong,
hit
yep.
the mark mainly.
Stanley
There's a couple
Tucci,
more.
Conclave, Yuri Borisov,
There's the one I was
for
thinking
Anora.
of.
Yep. So when you look at this, when you look at your list, personal list first, when you look at that list, what is something that maybe we're not talking about that you would love in the conversation?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head for almost all of them. And to be honest, I think my kind of top 8 for now are really where the discussion is at. There are outside shots like John Magaro for September 5th or John Lithgow for Conclave, if the Academy really go above and beyond. But I think the 8 you mentioned, plus what's the name of the other supporting actor in Nora, the guy, the older gentleman who plays the priest?
Yeah. I know you're talking about too.
I think he's also probably worth like mentioning as like a outside shot. But with supporting actor,
Was it
again, what I
Karen
love,
Kulla Gielan, right?
that's it. Yeah. So kind of with supporting actor, I look at the list and I kind of think there's no real one person at the moment who's the front runner and could win. Supporting actress, even though Saldana isn't locked in, it feels like she's more locked in to win than supporting actor because at the moment we have Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, which not a lot of people have really seen yet. We then have Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2, which a lot more people are feeling optimistic about until around about right now, and now people are kind of thinking maybe nomination, not the win. We have Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, and only 6 months ago, people didn't even have that in their Best Picture predictions, and now all of a sudden, it's looking at getting 3, 4 nominations. We then have Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing, which just had a weird strategy, and even though I think Sing Sing could have a really good awards run, I also think it could go completely the other way and just completely just dip and die in the water because I feel like it's kind of struggling with that accessibility route, and not a lot of people have seen it. So the only way forward I think it's got now is that the people who really love it are going to have to keep pushing it, and A24 just going to keep pushing kind of that passion and love towards the academy.
And it
And
does
then
help that
there's
it does help that it has Coleman Domingo, who is one of the most likable human beings in the world. So they really,
it does
it's
help.
you just put that man in front of the audience, and it really sells a film easily. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I agree, and I think he'll probably be the face of the campaign, and I think we can expect to see him a lot more come December, January time. Academy screener talks, talk shows, all that great shebang that makes the world go round in awards season. So I think it's got a route, but I'm still nervous. So I'm not putting any like number one, number two predictions for Sing Sing just yet. And then there's Yuri Borisov. I don't want to be offensive and say that name wrong. I think I got it just about right for Nora, who, interestingly enough, wasn't a part of the conversation. But then when I got round to watching it, I watched it and I thought like he could definitely be if Honora is as strong as people are mentioning, and it could get 8, 9, 10 nominations. He could definitely be in a year where supporting actor doesn't seem particularly locked up, and there's a lot of loose ends and a lot of places it can go. He could definitely be a part of that conversation. And I kind of love now how people are finally picking up onto that because even though I have Mikey Madison, I didn't remind myself of her name then, is the standout of that movie. There are so many supporting performances that just kind of keep that movie going, whether that's on an emotional level, on a comedic level, and a pacing level. I think all the actors just kind of complement each other so well in Honora.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm seeing it this weekend. I'm excited to see it. I'm not exactly a huge fan of Baker's work, so it's definitely it's definitely acquired taste, but excited about that. For me personally, looking at the films in the conversation, I was not as a big fan of The Apprentice as everybody else was. I thought the
Agreed.
performances were fine. I didn't think anything groundbreaking, in my opinion. It almost comes to a point of like, is this film in the conversation because of what the topic of the conversation is? And I feel like because of how things played out, not getting political here, but how things played out, I think maybe that film kind of goes to the wayside a little bit, I think possibly.
Do you
But
think a lot like in 2017 when Moonlight won Best Picture, and a lot of people think that had to do with kind of Trump coming into power and kind of the messages that he was kind of reflecting into America and how the Academy kind of wanted to counteract that and show love and support to all these communities. Do you reckon it could potentially go the other way where there's going to be a lot of people, I know it's not a particularly happy day right now in America, and I know a lot of people are feeling that pain. And with that, do you reckon there'll be enough kind of democratic people within the academy and around all these awards bodies who just kind of want to? I hate to put it like this, but if we're just talking honestly, do you reckon they just try and slip it into a few categories as a middle finger to Trump?
it and because it got made without him wanting it to be made, and that conversation, correct? Is that basically what you're saying? Because like the film was
Yeah,
brought out in spite of him, and I could see it going both ways, right? You could see it going both ways of getting multiple nominations or completely shoved to the wayside because as a, oh well, we don't want to talk about him no more. Like it's like a rock and a heart. It's like I think it go both ways with it. But to me, I don't feel like it should be, not that we really, what we ever say really matters with the Academy, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of performances that kind of get nominated for that and don't end up in the forefront of the conversation. But to me, honestly, I can't wait to see The Brutalist because I would love to see what kind of Guy Pearce brings to the table. As somebody not a huge fan of Sing Sing, I think Sing Sing's great because of Coleman. And that's, and I'm not saying Clarence Macklin's not good, but supporting to me is so, I hate to say it, like weak. This is probably the weakest of the four acting categories, in my opinion. I think it's kind of top heavy. Kieran Culkin to me is like here, and it's kind of everybody else kind of plays. Denzel, I think, is actually brilliant in Gladiator 2. I think he's magnificent. I think it's like you've never seen. It's hard to say that about somebody that's been around the block, but Washington leans heavily into that role like you've never seen him before. It's an easy nomination for him. I would love to see Adam Pearson get into the conversation because I think A Different Man is the far greater Sebastian Stan film that needs to be at the forefront of the conversation versus The Apprentice. But and then of course you have Nosferatu. No, I don't even know how to say it. Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. It's just in the conversation. A lot of people are talking about the multiple supporting performances in that. Will that? I know that is screening the 17th, I think it is. So there's screenings coming around the corner for that.
The
So
problem that I think Nosferatu and a complete unknown may have, and some movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, and that's the only one that really sprung to mind right away. Wow, my memory is getting
American
worse by the day.
Sniper.
American Sniper, they've been able to do it by releasing very late into the year. But more often than not, we've seen this before where they try and release so late, and by then they're just completely overshadowed by everything else. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I think Nosferatu would have to be like really great in order to make it into the conversation because we've seen so many movies like it before. I mean, it is a remake after all. So whilst I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm not kind of holding up that banner, and I'm not ready to
For
put it
sure.
in my top 10.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where it's gonna, and complete unknown is in the same boat. It's like it's gonna go one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just gonna. And the crazy thing about it is there's so many things because the Brutalist comes out at the same time to audiences, general audiences. You have the Brutalist, you have the Complete Unknown, you have Nosferatu. You have all of these films coming out on Christmas. You have Craven, which I know is not in the conversation, but there's so many films coming out that week of Christmas. It's actually insane, or the week before, you know what I mean, within that same
Yeah,
5 day time frame. But who's not saying, Aaron Tyler Johnson or Taylor Johnson. I mean, best actor for Craven. I mean, I could see it. There's a path for it, guys. But I'm kidding.
I mean, if you I mean, there's a path for anything if you really want to argue it. You never know these days.
Isn't Sonic coming out? Can we get that for best something? Um, Jim
Probably.
Carrey, best supporting actor. All right. So that being said, let's reel this back in a little bit. All right, give me your 5 in, and then let's talk about that six. Give me that 6 through 10 on the back half for me.
So my top 5 as of right now for best supporting actor are, and I've kind of changed this around last minute because since I did my last Oscar predictions, we've had a few more reactions like Gladiator 2, for example. So number 1, I've got Guy Pearce on a Brutalist. Number 2, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. Then at number 3, I have Denzel Washington, Gladiator 2. Number 8, no, number 8. Number 4, Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing. Then number 5, Yuri Borisov for Anora. Then kind of going through 6 to 10 outside shots I think could happen. Number 6, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, even though I don't think it probably will end up being a big awards player. And like you, I wasn't a big fan of The Apprentice. The one thing that I actually did really love about that movie was his performance. He was by far and away the standout for me. Every single time he was on the screen as a breath of fresh air, I was like, okay, I like this movie again now. Number 7, I have Stanley Tucci for Conclave. Number 8, got Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown. Then my number, and then this top 8 that I kind of have, I don't want to be arrogant and jump the gun, but I feel pretty strong that it'll be one of these. It'll be 5 of these 8 that make it in at the end of the day. So my number 9 and my number 10, I struggled with a bit, but I've had to really reach out for outside picks. I went with John Magaro for September 5, and then John Lithgow for Conclave.
Yeah, like the Conclave love, it's like I feel like I've had a lot of different conversations over the last couple of weeks where people are like so invested in that film. So if it ends up being a two popes where like, it's getting in everywhere, we're definitely going to have that conversation because it's crazy. Like I went from talking to people, but like, yeah, man, it was just okay. And then the next week I'm having conversation, man, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, guys, let's calm down a little bit. One name that I keep seeing pop up in a couple different, I look at, you look across the board, see what everybody else is talking about. I do think a fun name being passed around right now is obviously Hugh Grant for Heretic and Heretic. And I would love that just because, but it'll never happen in a million years. But
I'd love to see it, but yeah, no, that's just a complete wishful thinking vote.
100% agree with me. Let's see here. So my top 5 that I got in right now, I'm almost positive. I think we had the same 5: Culkin, Washington, Pierce, Borisov, and Macklin. Macklin to me is the weakest link. I think that honestly, I think those 4 are probably at 3. I'll say Anora is going to be one of those ones where it's like, all right, is it going to be as strong as people think it is? But I do think that the top 3, Culkin, Washington, and Pierce, I think those are as lock as you can be right now, because I think Denzel, whether the film gets into picture or sprinkled it out, it's Denzel Washington. He's probably going to get nominated. But the Conclave love is in the conversation. Jeremy Strong, whether it's on either side of our fence of what we talked about. And I think I didn't realize both sides of that story. Yeah, so it's possible. Again, A Complete Unknown is Edward Norton is in that conversation. Of course, Tucci. I did the same thing with you when it comes down to like the wishful thinking. I do have Adam Pearson for A Different Man in at number 9. To me, it's just, again, once you get to 9, it's really like, ugh, you know what I mean? So it's like, you really kind of do get to that wishful thinking kind of point of view. But yeah, so that being said, that is the supporting categories for Benji and I. Benji, we will be back with our next episode, obviously talking about the lead categories. But Benji, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week with more awards conversation, people.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. And see you next week.